in Ontario. I'm all about coffee and cigarettes, okay? But an important thing happened when we lost Gord Downie. His spirit has lived on in this country as an example of reconciliation in this country. As an example that no matter what side of the coin you are on, if you are indigenous or if you are colonial, you can understand that love is the only answer in this country. We have a fantastic place that we live in, and I really feel that through gentle understanding, we can come together, we can start sealing this massive gap that's been living in our country for hundreds of years. So I'm going to read this little piece right here for you. And this is back in 1983 when I first met Gord Downie and his band, and I'll read this to you now quickly and we'll do a little song. Rave on, Gord Downie. Gord was just a kid. Hell, we were all just kids in 1983, 1984. I first met him when I answered a knock at my hotel room door at the Prince George in Kingston, and there he was with a couple of his high school buddies. It was the middle of the afternoon. We were drinking beer, playing cards. I had that knock come to the door, and standing out in the hallway were these really fresh kids shuffling from one foot to the other. They told me that they were fans of my band, the Florida Razors. They'd come to see us at Dollar Bills and bought our records, and they were in high school and they had a band too. I said, "Oh yeah, what's the name of your band?" And one of them said, "Tragically Hip." I said, "Wow, that's a great name. You ought to hold on to that one for sure." I think I might have kept them out in the hallway because there was a card game, like I said, going on. There was some money on the table, some local colors hanging around, and privacy was the utmost importance. So we talked through the doorway about music. They told me they played early Rolling Stones and did a few Monkees covers. So I asked them if they wanted to come down to the bar that night and do a set before us, like maybe half an hour or 45 minutes. And do you guys actually have enough songs to fill a set like that? And one of them said, "Yeah, sure." I closed the door and I went back to the card game. That night, they all showed up. Some of them younger than the ones that came to the hotel earlier that day. So we brought them downstairs to this damp basement we were using as a dressing room, and we gave them a couple beers and smoked a joint, but we kept them out of sight because they were all way underage. Some of them looked like Boy Scouts. One of them actually looked like a Girl Guide. We let them use our amps and drums and basically kept an eye out for them. 9 p.m. comes and they get up on stage and they plug in and start playing this really old British Invasion R&B, songs that I'd never heard around the post-punk Canadian music scene, and they played them with some kind of awkward precision, like they had actually rehearsed. We never rehearsed, we just did speed. We just made it up as we went along, and I was surprised that these guys were actually sitting in such a beautiful groove, and I can't remember all the songs they played, but there was a version of Baby Please Don't Go by Van Morrison and them, and they also did Off the Hook by the Rolling Stones. I mean, who does Off the Hook? Nobody in the Hammer, nobody that I knew. You know, it was all fresh. It wasn't old geezer style rock and roll, because these were basically children with guitars and drums playing ancient R&B. And the singer was another story. He wasn't like the gob-soaked, foul-mouthed, street corner knuckleheads I ran into trying to prove something. He was more exotic, kind of rare, not your average cock-swinging punk frontman. And he really loved those songs he was singing, man. And I thought he was brave to stand up there in a room full of boozy-faced Princess Street rounders and allow himself to be fully exposed the way he did. He didn't hide behind ego like so many of us did. And as Alex the Large from A Clockwork Orange would have said, it was like a great bird had flown into the room. I think that maybe Gord Downie was just innocent. He was innocent then, and somehow in my eyes, he managed to stay that way, because when I think of him in 1984 on that little stage at the Toucan in Kingston, I think of him a couple summers ago sharing the stage on the Interstellar Rodeo in Edmonton. I know I'm looking at the same guy. A lot of us change, try to cover up what we are. Gord acted out exactly what he was for all of us to see. The cells never changed. His innocence stayed intact despite the 33 years between those two performances, and his bravery still raves on. He reminded me a bit of Mick Jagger on the Tammy Show back then, but he ended up as something that none of us had ever seen. He was all his own creation. It was compelling and honest, and it was a live wire that burned a hole right into our imaginations and voiced the soundtrack for generations of Canadians. All Canadians in kitchens or in parking lots before hockey games, songs that blasted from car windows and DJ booths everywhere. Who won the Grey Cup in 1994, the peak of the Tragically Hip's career? I don't know who won the Grey Cup. I don't have a clue. But if I was to take a guess, I'd say it was Gord Downie and the Tragically Hip.